If you're saying some things, are there consequences? Sure, there's consequences for everything. You dress this way, you behave this way, you say this thing to the wrong person. Yes, something can happen to you. Accountability doesn't infringe upon your ability to speak. It just means something may happen. You got to be cool with it because you chose to say it.
But what it serves as an example that what you post and what you say online really does it can have a really big effect.
I had this conversation with another guest on a previous episode about again the connection aspect. So some people, they're only sharing things with the express intent to get a certain amount of engagement. Like, I want X amount of likes, I need X amount of followers, I need X amount of subscribers, instead of sharing just to share, which you were bringing up a little while ago. And I think that, to me, is kind of where it got lost. Because if you just wanted to share and you wanted people to see it, like, that's kind of how I am. I didn't grow up with it, but I do like that it can be used in that way. I think that that's awesome. Like, the people, maybe it's your little small group that you're like, I want them to see that I had a really good meal, or I'm taking this trip, and I'm doing good for myself. I think that that's beautiful, right?
Also,
instead of the other way.
Digital footprint.
Sure.
That's something people need to be a little bit more mindful of too.
Well, people don't think about that.
No.
I think about this concept with young people. Like, everything isn't necessarily need to be shared.
No.
Like sometimes, and I'm a thinker out loud type person, but some thoughts don't need to be shared publicly. Not because people shouldn't be able to speak openly, but sometimes we need to kind of let it marinate a little more before you express that thought. Express a more coherent thought. And then even, again, what we post, like images we post, videos that we post, we can say, oh, I was young, I was silly, I wasn't thinking. But sometimes that can impact you, later on in life. You might not think about it later on. Somebody digs this thing up and then they, hold it against you, even though people will make mistakes. But
you see that on TikTok a lot,
right?
Because of the mere exposure, like, that a lot of videos get, you can be a very small person with a very small circle from a very small town, and you post one video, and suddenly 1 million people have seen it.
Right.
And then, like,
the virality of this content.
People are getting kicked out of schools because they're emailing their schools, and maybe what they did and said is bad.
Sure.
And the school obviously has a reason to therefore punish them for such behavior.
Yeah.
But it's crazy. Like, imagine what would happen if they just never made that video. They'd still be in school, they'd still be playing on their college football team, and now they're not because they posted a video where they made a mistake.
Exactly. That's what I think about when it comes to. That's why I talked about everything doesn't need to be posted. I'm a huge believer in forgiveness and redemption. Huge, because everybody, all of us, will make many mistakes throughout our lives. I'm not. I will, and I really mean it when I say this. I think this idea of cancel culture is not good for us. I get that people sometimes say outlandish things. They say racist things, homophobic things, misogynist things, misandrous things. I think people say all types of stuff, right, for a variety of reasons. I don't think everybody should not be allowed to speak, because that takes away the opportunity, again, for thoughts to be challenged, for you to really understand, why do you hold this to be true or not? But, of course, I believe in accountability too. If you're saying some things, are there consequences? Sure, there's consequences for everything. You dress this way, you behave this way, you say this thing to the wrong person. Yes, something can happen to you. Accountability doesn't infringe upon your ability to speak. It just means something may happen. You got to be cool with it because you chose to say it, at that time.
I agree, but that's another thing where I think more so me using that example is like me saying it shows how serious what you think isn't serious can be.
Yeah.
It shows how much it can spread. It shows how much it can affect. And I agree that accountability is important. And there's certain things where, especially if, like, sometimes people in privileged positions, like, you know, you make a mistake like that and you're going to be held accountable
Mhm.
because there's people who would love to be in your position who may be morally aligned with what that institution stands for more.
Yeah.
But what it serves as is an example of that what you post and what you say online really does it can have a really big effect. And the amount of
Yes.
times I've looked back at like stupid pictures or things I've posted and regretted them, that's another reason that I don't post anymore. Because who's to say I'm not going to look back at what I posted, you know, a week ago and say in a couple of years, I'm like, why would I post that? Even if it's not a bad thing, even if
Sure.
it's not the type of thing that keep me from getting a job or anything like that. It's just sometimes it's just embarrassing, you know?
Yeah. And again, we're allowed to grow. So there
Mhm.
may be things that, you know, I used to be cool with that I'm not. There's used to be things that I used to share that I don't. I think that that's totally okay and appropriate. But it's just more being conscious and aware of these things when you choose to do them. Like there can be long-term unintended consequences. So you want to be conscious as best as you can when you decide to do certain things,
Mhm.
especially when you talk about in the digital space.